And we're live now. Nice to meet you, Jeff.
Hi. Hello, Relaxicorn. Hello, world.
Yeah, or just call me Tony.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was my question. I forgot that question before we went live. I was
All
like,
good.
I don't know your actual name. That's crazy.
All good. Now
nice
you
to meet
know.
you properly, Tony.
Anton or Tony. But Tony's easier for me, even with my English struggles in general.
You sound great to me.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah. Pretty cool. Then I would let you introduce yourself, quickly.
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Jeff Cook. I'm from Atlantic Canada, from New Brunswick specifically. I've been doing music for my entire life, but I started the Inert project. Inert is a VTuber. She's a video game character with no voice, kind of looks like a Final Fantasy VI character. And this is kind of the moniker that I hold all of my lo-fi under. I fell in love with it one Christmas. I was baking, and it was during COVID when lo-fi girl was kind of popping off, and I was like, what is the appeal? I was trying to figure out, kind of, because I'm into math rock and emo and stuff. It's really far removed from this kind of hip-hop. But then I put the headphones in and I got to baking, and man, it was just a transformative experience. I fell in love. I was able to associate it with all of my favorite hip hop and stuff like that. And then I was like, okay, let's try to make it. And then, of course, an incredible uphill battle learning how to properly create something that sounds so simple. So yeah, I longtime emo rock artist who was converted like so many people in 2019, 2020.
So you had a band in this emo rock genre. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I really was into emo music like when it had its peak, I would say.
Sure. Yeah.
With like bands like Silverstein.
Oh yeah. The real nostalgia stuff. Yeah. I think these guys like sadly get grouped into the like mall emo, I think is what it's called, which has almost become a derogatory term, but I love those bands. Like I really, really do. It doesn't fit into the real emo label.
Yeah. I totally get it.
Label.
Yeah, and then I discovered like my favorite band. I don't know if you heard about it. It's called La Dispute.
Oh yeah! Oh my God, they're so cool.
Oh, wrong arm. I got a tattoo here of their logo. That was my very first tattoo that I had.
They're so high energy. It's amazing.
And also the new stuff that is kind of chill and relaxed. I really loved it.
Cool. I got to check that out. I haven't kept up with them, unfortunately. I think maybe the first two records, or maybe I caught the second and third one or something. It was during this time that you're describing when like it really was having its heyday. This is probably when I listened to them. Yeah.
No, they kind of started getting a bit more mellow with each album.
Okay.
The super new ones, I don't know either. They at one point started mixing it with like electronic music. I really like electronic music, but I didn't catch up with the mix of both.
Yeah, and something that's just like so rough for me is I fall in love with something emotionally for a band, and then they like set this emotional bar for themselves that they probably can't surpass for me. And it's this unfortunate, like every time an album comes out, I'm like, it'll never be as good as, like XYZ. And I really have a bad habit of this. So,
I know it. I know that very good.
Right.
This feeling.
Yeah.
But it happens so often with super iconic bands. There are some that I think their third, fourth, fifth album was better.
Yeah, this happens. Yeah.
For me, it was with Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, on their third or fourth album, where you can really notice a big difference of how well the whole instrumentalization and the voice and everything play together. There's actually a super interesting story behind that. I don't know if you have heard about Rick Rubin.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
And it was the first collaboration with Rick Rubin in the background.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
I don't know if you know the story already, but he took the band into a big living room. They rent a super big house, and it was because he talked with the band and they told him that the first 2 or 3 experiences in the studio were not that nice, and there were different studios. It's not like they went to one studio and it was bad, but like all the studios they tried were okay, but not like super great. And Rick Rubin described it in an interview that they spent their whole weekend and like just being totally creative, like recording parts several times, but then getting this super nice, well glued together work. And then you could recognize after John Frusciante left the band for a bit that the sound went super low, in my opinion. And now they had a comeback.
A lot of opinions. There's a lot of people who believe that about John.
And they had a comeback, the super trippy album in 2001, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
And it felt like the old times again. It was brilliant. I really love it. Again.
These experiences of like musicians getting together in a space like that for a protracted period or like compressed creativity, I find like there's so many amazing albums, right? Like Bohemian Rhapsody, the record that's on for Queen, that was, they were at like a chalet for a weekend. 100 Gex, like Dylan and Laura were just like holed up in his New York apartment. She was like off school for a weekend or something, and that's where the 100 Gex EP came from. There's something magical about creatives just giving themselves time to work together and really focus on creating something different, creating something new. So much good stuff comes out of a weekend like that.
Yes, and approaching a lot of like new ways, like experimenting with completely new let's say workflows or just environment. I started reading the book from Rick Rubin, and he told that sometimes when a songwriter had a blockade, he just like turned off all the lights in the studio and said, now sing something in the completely dark and all that kind of stuff. I'm a little aversive to like that sort of mysticism, I guess, in like my own creation, but I can appreciate how helpful it is for people. I think I'm like way too literal. It's like evident that Rick Rubin's method works. Like he creates effing pop stars, like literal titans. But I've always actually found that like that perspective like kind of limiting because because you don't know what the result is supposed to be. So it's like, okay, I'm trying to create something. I have kind of an intended result in mind. And then someone's like, turn the lights off. And so there's no real like expectation of like what will happen on the other end. And I've always found it really difficult. I think this is like a personal philosophy thing, but I've always really wanted to have, like I found if I ever have a writer's block, it's like, it's references, it's learning. It's like really deliberately seeking out the sound that I'm trying to make. And then like learn, I guess, like do what I would do, like going to school or practicing guitar or something like that, like be like very literal referencing. But I also don't create, Bohemian Rhapsody or anything like that. Not yet.
Not yet. Maybe,
but if you're talking about your creations, you send me the song to play.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
And let's give our listeners a little input of your music.
Let's do it. Let's try it out. The different snare at the beginning, I lifted that idea wholesale off of the Under Oath album that Less Gravity just put out. Thought that was such a cool idea. I think a lot of you guys do it, but it didn't hit for me until I listened to that record.
I let it play a little bit longer.
Yeah. The nature sounds and stuff, I think a lot of people use Foley drums, like djembe and palkit in them, but I really like the more metallic stuff. Like Nokia is a lo-fi artist that uses stuff with like a more brittle timbre, I guess.
That's truly a fantastic production.
Oh,
I have listened to some of your songs, not all, and like this whole sound space with like different sounds in different corners. I really enjoy that. You know that I really enjoy this details about like having the sounds placed well in the room, and you did that super well on this one.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I think the first time I collaborated with Hotline Sewani, I was like, damn, like this sounds so much louder. Like the loofs like weren't really higher than what you might expect for a lo-fi song or something. But I was like, where is this fullness coming from? And I think at the time, my concept of what like stereo space was, it just was not, well, I mean, inadequate is a weird word to use, but it wasn't what I wanted. I think Hotline Sewani and like the way that he uses the whole room. I think that was kind of what I was looking for. And so I started really, really pushing that idea, and maybe I'll end up back in like a gray area at some point, but I'm way out there now. I'm like ozone imager just everywhere.
Oh, yes.
Just totally. Make it big, you know?
And panning automations, I really love.
Oh, yeah.
Plugins that do the auto pan for you, but sometimes you have to do it by hand.
Yeah, yeah.
It not always works well with an automated system.
I know. I use Reaper as my audio workspace, and it has a few automated ones, like a few options to choose from. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like when there's an effect that you have in mind, like sometimes you just got to get in there. And luckily I can like save automation items. It's just part of the efficiency of it.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, yeah. And so I can
sorry.
No, it's okay. So I can, if I want to achieve that effect again, I can either just like render it down to a sample or grab that automation item as like a file, which is lucky. Yeah.
This is really great. I always have to make it myself.
I hate that. Oh, there's some of them I still do because tempo matters. Sometimes like what tempo it is matters for the automation, and it just like I feel like our industry is so industrious. It's so prolific. There's so much that needs to be done that every time I'm doing something mechanical like this, something repetitive, I'm like, I'm gonna fall behind. If I'm just moving these dots around an automation lane, I'm gonna fall behind. And so I feel the need to automate, or to not automate, but find efficiencies and stuff like that.
My biggest game changer was the LFO tool from Xper, the guys that made Serum.
LFO tool. I see. LFOs are something. Still unfortunately out of my skill set. I know what they look like. I know they look sick. They're moving around and there's like something following away.
It's super simple actually. You have I will drop a video about this tool in the next few days.
Nice.
Because I really love what you can do. You have this one plugin that you can choose from, I guess, 8 different LFOs. You can adjust every LFO, just draw in the curve that you want. Then on each of those LFOs, I usually only use 2. One I'm using for volume automations and make like over 1 or sometimes over 4 bars, when you have repetitive hi-hats.
Okay.
Get that volume groove.
Oh, that's such a good idea.
And for the second thing, I use another LFO that's probably sine wave shaped.
Yeah.
And this I send just to the panning. And you cannot do like very crazy stuff with it. It's super simple. It's really, really simple. And you can even add swing to it.
Oh, I was just thinking that. I was like, I hear these hi-hat delays, these panning hi-hat delays, but they have a swing, and the automated stuff I use doesn't. Even if you move the MIDI, the delay is locked in. The delay is like, so that's sick. That's really cool.
That's why it's a game changer. And I have this tool for 6 years now, and I really start using it on the last 2 beats.
It's
for
crazy.
real.
Yeah, it's crazy how that happens. I can't remember who it was that I was working with, and I was like, where are they getting this sound or this sound? And then I've been doing filter sweeps and some like width automation and stuff, but I finally got into like RC20s like automation settings, and I think like there are parts of it that don't work the way that I thought they would, and like I've ended up kind of replacing them for other things. But just like how powerful it can be to automate some of the features of that plugin has really like it created so many tools just by opening up a few automation lanes. It was nuts.
Yeah, automations can make or break a song, in my opinion, because it give it that little extra. even if you have in lo-fi especially a super repetitive music genre, and you don't want to have like super crazy different chord progressions and like 5 sections. You want to keep it minimalistic.
Totally.
But by like slightly changing a filter animation on a keyboard can make the song live.
Yeah, you need it. You really need it. It's exactly like you said. Like when you take something that's meant to be inoffensive, and then if you just left it like that, then it wouldn't be interesting enough to keep listening to. We almost have two audiences, like the person who's going to sleep to it and isn't going to notice it, but then the musician who like we're trying to give them a satisfying experience. But I think both people care about it being like there being salient kind of excitement, but one doesn't look for it maybe necessarily. Yeah.
And what's also super important that I learned is to, as a musician especially, more digging into new artists and new producers, because ending up listening to like the 10 in your shorter that you really enjoy and love will not give you new ideas. It will only lead to the moment where you're doing the same beat over and over again.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. And as I get older, I get worse at this kind of intentional listening. And it's part of the reason why I like being in the Discord that we're in, like with these lo-fi artists, because I'm getting exposed to the best of the best, and I can actually ask people how they do things. And that's insane. Having that kind of access is incredible. But when I was making emo music, it was a lot harder because the only feedback you would get is from the audience. And in that genre, getting any attention at all is really difficult. So getting like a relevant data point about whether you interpreted this new sound that you're trying out, it was really hard. And then of course, like the bands that people are listening to and attributing the genre to are changing really, really fast. So you have to keep up with that. And yeah, I feel lucky to be where I am now with like references and feedback.
Yeah, that's a big game changer. Same for me. I think we came around the same time on the server.
Okay, cool.
More or less. I'm not fully sure, but it wasn't a big gap.
Yeah, cool.
Because I remember you start getting super active there with your weekly review. For the listeners, Jeff is doing like, we have this one Discord subfolder with new releases. And Jeff is writing like super long articles about each of the tracks. Everybody loves it.
Yeah. And I'm so glad. Yeah.
I already thought like several times you should really start doing a blog. Because I think in the way you're choosing the words to describe the songs, it's not that much of producer focused. So I would say usual listener or just music enthusiast who's not producing music can really enjoy that.
Oh yeah, that's good to know. I've considered it. I was not ironically, but coincidentally doing a video series similar to this, but I was covering all the music that was released in the city that I'm from. So
that's
I was
super dope.
It was cool. It was tough though. So in that practice, I became a de facto journalist, and my mandate was to cover every song in the city. And I didn't realize what kind of like power that gives a person. And so I think that's made me hesitant, I guess, to put myself out there with my opinion in the same way. Not that I think this is a lot more low key. Like I don't think the people in our community do the reprehensible things that the people in my city probably do. But it's I make it for them. Like I make it just for you guys, you know. Like I think the hardest thing as a musician is that fear that no one's listening. Like you're going to put something out and no one's going to listen. And I felt that so many times.
Oh yeah, I remember those phases. For me, it was when I started with music, and I was on the electronic and techno side first. And yeah, but the one part is really nobody cared.
Yeah,
that's they have even more releases per Friday, as in the in the chill beat scene.
No way.
There's a website called Beatport, and as a DJ, you buy all the tracks from there. It's like iTunes, but
So
you
that's
get
kind of
it.
the place. That's the place to go for your EDM.
Yeah, because they have charts, new releases, and like hype charts, and over 1 month, 3 months, 12 months charts where you can
Complex.
just pick from your genre that you are DJing. And also, I took the time once when I had a release that went on Beatport as well, to go through all the new releases on one Friday. I had a list just in melodic techno. It was only melodic techno. There were like house and all that stuff. And I chose the option to have 100 tracks listed on one page. And I remember going through more than 100 pages of 1 day of releases.
Oh my God.
And that's like a subgenre. That's not like the overall techno genre that would have like multiple thousand pages.
That's a little that's just a little chunk.
Yeah.
How could you ever compete? You would have to be really different. You would really have to be crazy different, I think, probably, to stand out, right?
Yeah, and there I kind of learned that networking is a really huge thing as a musician.
Yeah.
So there were this one method that I learned from others that kind of got successful is to get an email list where you're collecting emails from like big DJs and agents from big DJs, from the big names, and just email them your song 1 month before the release to have like a super exclusive track to play that not a lot of the competitors in the scene have to play.
I see.
So that worked pretty well if the quality of your release was great, and the big name saw it and knew, okay, I can play this song for a whole month before it's out and have like something super unique. And then you just keep stalking them to see if they have like a Instagram story where they're playing this song, or like reposting fan stories. And
people don't know that musicians are like Rainbow. We're out here, like we see like a faceless lo-fi channel and we're like on the internet with the OSINT, just like tracking people down. It's shocking how good you get at it after a while.
Yeah, but that was also one of the reasons why I stopped doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it doesn't feel good. I was doing a similar thing when I got invited to this Discord because I felt the same way, but there was something that was becoming evident, and it was that the real estate of being a featured artist or a primary artist on a track on Spotify was just like, it was almost getting better than being on a playlist in some cases. And so I had the like vapid idea that like the more people I cold called for a feature, the more popular I would get. But then when I actually started collaborating with people for the first time, I realized that it's a way longer game than that. Like you have a lot more to gain from being in relationships with other musicians in the stuff that you're making. And then I just stopped. There was no need, because once you have like, 10 to 12 contacts, like you then you don't even have time to like nurture those relationships in the way that would benefit both of you and stuff like that,
Yeah, I really struggle with that kind of getting an overview, because I can tell you I met so many super cool musicians, and this is kind of one of the methods with this podcast that I want to like stay in touch, also like get to know the persons better, because writing over Instagram and Discord is one thing, but having a face-to-face conversation is a whole different experience, and it's also super nice just to learn from each other on a complete different level.
Yeah, in a way where I'm not like trying to covertly like steal, lasers from Less Gravity, or like this particular music box from Mellow Yo-Yo. Like there's this like sweepy Foley thing that you do that I'm like, how does that happen? So yeah, it's much better, I think, probably to just get on the horn and ask people. I found it the hardest thing for me in this moment is that like I found something that worked, and it's
Mm-hmm.
so hard to pull yourself away from your projects
Mm-hmm.
to take time to learn. And it's
Mm-hmm.
ironic because that's probably the most important thing, is to, because you were saying like you were saying about DJs, like I think we often forget that we have to do both things.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have to contact people, we have to market ourselves, we have to network, we have to make the music. But then you said, and it has to be good enough, and it has to be unique enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like balancing these two things while you're just pumping out material can be so difficult. And one of the only ways to do that is to contact people, to like do something like this. Like now I'm probably going to go figure out how to use LFOs with like a delay or like anything, or like pitch or something, you know what I mean? Like I could use that in so many different ways. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why another like method that I learned from a book. It's from a German book called the 30 Laws of Winners. Okay. And what it's 30 chapters about different stuff, just like to kind of elevate the way you think from being lazy and from being, how do I say, like having this point of view that you're not worth it, to switch to someone who is setting goals and go for them. Yeah. No matter what, you know, you can, let's say, go to the gym, you train hard, everything hurts, but keep going. Like, take a day off, but don't take 2 days off.
Don't stop. That's right. Yeah, consistency first. Just like small steps that you can do again and again.
One chapter was constantly learning and growing, and this covers so many things. Because in order, I translated it to the artist being. In order, if you want to make it as an artist, you have to grow your personality as well. By just like reading books about history of music, let's say, or watch documentaries or interviews from other artists, just to see their point of view. And if this small little spark is inspiring, then you can adapt that. Or also the same thing is with watching tutorials. I watched one thing.
Absolutely.
I watched like hundreds of different videos from different creators about mixing, mastering, and this one channel produced like a pro.
Oh, I love that guy. Yeah.
And he's actually mixing rock music, and that's the guy I learned the most from. Yeah. Even though it was a complete different style of music, it was like mind-opening.
You never know. Yeah. This is the definition of creativity, is taking two disparate ideas and putting them together. Yeah. You know? Something you said, I like really resonated with it. This part about how being an artist, your personality, like your perception of what being a musician is. Like I come from a pretty small place, and everybody that grows up here, like I work with young people on their musical journey, is really fulfilling. But the hardest barrier is that when we grow up with kind of a closed mind, or like not a lot of exposure to professional musicians, we start to believe that the only way to do this is that kind of narrow way we've seen it on TV. You know, it's like these people that are like sex, drugs, and rock and roll, like they're dying young, and they're wearing top hats, and they've got cigarettes hanging out of their headstalks. And so I find out that this is like, for some people, of course, this is a very meaningful way to live. But for a lot of people, they know that their identity has something to do with music, but they can't reconcile it with the fact that they're not, you know, Freddie Mercury, or they're not Billie Eilish, or they're one of these things. And so, we have to dig deep. We don't have the same kind of pipelines that maybe a lawyer or a doctor does. Not to say that what they're doing is like easier or something, but there isn't an established kind of like institution to guide us to our purpose, to our meaning. We have to grab it piecemeal from everywhere and practice and try things to kind of figure out our version of that identity.
Exactly.
It's really hard. Yeah.
Because you have so many like self-named gurus on I teach you how to become famous on Spotify and whatever.
Right.
And if they have like 100 or 1,000 people making their course, it probably works for like 5 of them.
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
the personality of them is matching what they learned. But you cannot like generalize that, because like you said with the doctors, a brain surgery is made like this and this, and let's say most of the human bodies work in a similar way. If you cut here, you get there, right? Or same as being like mechanic for cars. The oil tank is always where the oil tank is.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's like it's institutionalized too.
Yeah.
Like I don't think it's it's like you said. I like the ways that we get this information is so limited. Like doctors have whole schools. They have whole massive institutions where people pay for them to they get scholarships. People support their academics and their education because, and it's like this, it just sounds like I'm taking shots at doctors. I'm not. Like what they do is ostensibly incredibly useful for human beings. But yeah, we don't have that. Like we have people who can be almost destructive sometimes when they're like, if you want the only way to get placed on a Spotify curated playlist, here are 3 quick steps. It's like, it's never that easy.
It's never.
and that's our version of med school. Like that's what you get is this thing that looks nothing like. And I really, I'm ranting, but I'm going to take a shot at like current music academia. I was looking into music conservatories and stuff, or at least the ones I have access to in Canada. And what the music landscape looks like for us, the thing that you and I are participating in, looks nothing like what the curriculums at any of the music schools in my country are focusing on. It's only like maybe Juilliard or Berkeley or the most prestigious, expensive ones where you could take a specialized course in like a modern music aspect. And I guess it's just frustrating. It's like when I'm working with young people, I want to be like, here's what you can do. When you don't have access to me anymore, you can go to this school or you can go this way, and at least you'll have like a consistent way to kind of figure out what you want to do with your life or be who you want to be. And I find that like academic music doesn't really do that, or it's not as open-minded as maybe I think it needs to be. Yeah.
And my opinion on all this academic stuff that is turning around art, it's such a hard topic, because all the good or super impactful artists in our history did not went to such a school, but the school is teaching their methods. That worked for a Beethoven, right? And
Van Gogh, like, you know.
We have this one school. It's super funny. It's called the SAE in whole Europe, and always when I'm seeing the advertisement for their music production school, I have this one line in my head from this one German rapper who is like, and all of your rapper beats sound like BS from students of this academy. Because they kind of all sound the same, you know. They have the same mixing technique, they have the same mastering technique and the same approach on a lot of stuff. And if you're learning by a blueprint, you will never create something truly meaningful and unique, in my opinion. And I can appreciate why it would be so challenging for an institution. And we've already said this, it's almost come full circle. Like the institution would have to stay on the bleeding edge, you know. They'd have to be listening to new artists, they'd have to be paying attention to kind of like what human beings consider to be the standard, and then teach people that. Not, you know, there's a place for classical music. There's a lot of benefit to learning how to play Beethoven and learning those composition methods. I've benefited from it, but it isn't as helpful as it used to be, I would say, in the contemporary sense of what most people want to be when they want to be a musician, or at least the ones that I'm working with. A lot of them don't want to be a classical composer, and so I wish these places listened. That's what I meant. It's nothing to like discredit them. They did an amazing job coming up with these compositions. And that's where I see the problem. They haven't met. They probably learned the tonality or like the different scales, and this basic music theory, but nobody told them how to mix their snares. Okay, they didn't they didn't have that, but you know what I mean.
They were like, Leonardo, we have to make the church bigger, okay? Like the snare doesn't sound right. Like you got to put another steeple in, bud.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it didn't work that way back then. Yeah, it's true. I'm sure they did some whack stuff. They probably put like a goat on a snare and they're just like sit this animal on this drum and make it sound a certain way or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And yeah, it's also I'm not that much listening to like only lo-fi music, but I really love hip hop in general. And every artist that is kind of in my inspirational list, they have beats that stand out completely from the general mixing style. You know the song "Drank" by Kendrick Lamar?
No, I don't, unfortunately. I'm kind of a poser when it comes to Kendrick.
Oh,
but
good.
Everything is good. I know that I'd love it if I heard it.
I know maybe 5 songs of him, but this one got me so hard. The intro got this super hard hitting snare that is almost hurting your ears. But
nice.
But it's really fitting into this concept of this song, because it's like someone hitting the snare super hard.
Yeah.
But only in the intro, and then it got like a bit filtered out, but still like super present, super hard.
Oh yeah, I'm playing it. I'm listening to it. It's that 808 snare too. It's that iconic, just like, but it sounds very naked. It sounds like they might even like low past it.
And in the intro, it really cuts through everything.
Yeah, everything is just like, good track, obviously Kendrick Lamar. So
and you can get like this little inspirations from like every type of music that you're listening to. I would say if I would spend the whole day listening to like Iron Maiden, and then hop in the studio making a lo-fi beat, I would at least take like two aspects of what I heard and kind of try to redo it.
Yeah, I think the thing that the genre that fascinates me the most, because I still make emo music. Once a year I do an album of emo music just to like satisfy that part of myself. And the genre that blows my mind is scrams, which is what's become shorthand for screamo, if folks don't know. So scrams, the reason it actually, the literal way they do it is they take like a cell phone microphone and they like put it under a bed sheet, and then they stand 6 feet away and like scream the lyrics at the top of their lungs, like scream bloody murder. And so it sounds awful, like ostensibly, like mechanically or technically, that is some of the worst recording technique you could probably apply, right?
With the phone.
I know, but the reason I think the emo music I was making was not connecting with people, and I think it was because I was classically trained. At one point, I could sing opera. At one point, I could play like Eruption by Eddie Van Halen on guitar. But when this translated to that genre, people were like, we want it to suck more. and when I found out that it's Your Arms Are My Cocoon is the band, when I found out that that's how they record the vocals, that's when I realized, I was like, it doesn't super matter like how technically good it is. It's like just what people want to hear. It's what people associate with that. And so scrams is really, really fascinating to me. So with my last emo album, I had like a guitar amp across the room, and like I had a bunch of like machinery on in the apartment, just like no sterile environment. And with lo-fi, I feel the same way. Like it's really tempered that. Like when you hear that thing, there are some VSTs that have like MIDI just noise. Like if you hit a certain key, they'll just be like a Foley kind of something happens. And so sometimes when I plug in a MIDI, it's supposed to be a note, but like there's like a key jangle instead or something. And the scram stuff has taught me, it's like sometimes you just leave that. Sometimes just having that imperfect, like what feels bad. Sometimes that's really what makes the song unique. That's really what people want to hear. And they're both low fidelity genres. So even though the end product wants the exact opposite thing, scrams, it's like scream at my mom or whatever. And like lo-fi is like chill, do my homework. They're still going for the same kind of like eroded, degraded sort of aesthetic, but they achieve it from two completely different mediums.
Yeah, and it's kind of this nostalgic vibe of
Yeah.
having not perfectly clean songs.
Yeah, totally.
But also the other side that we experience is that it have to be clean enough to not sound completely terrible.
Right.
It's like really balancing on this super thin ice, in my opinion.
What's just bad enough?
Exactly.
Yeah, who knows? It's really hard to know. It's really, really hard to know.
And I don't know, for me it's sometimes super hard to like really fit into this, because chill beats are chill beats, and if you're googling like lo-fi music or just type it in YouTube, you see chill hop and lo-fi girl, or the other way around. Lo-fi girl is a bit more famous, and they have this super significant sound that all the tracks in this 24/7 live stream share, kinda.
Yeah, it has its own genre, almost its own sub kind of like tropes and cliches, for sure.
And the good part about our Discord is that I really figured out that every artist on there got his own unique vision, and it works.
No, hold on, conspiracy theory time. I don't know who started it, but those like djembe, palkid, like rolling finger roll drums, I know that we're all stealing it from somewhere. That all came from the same person, and I need to know where it started. The like djembe, palkid, like it's like really rambly, foley, like click clack drums, like low. They're low passed, and they're like constant. They are all very, very different, but I know this is one of like the common elements that I'm obsessed with.
With a lot of Foley sounds, they probably stole it from El Rey.
Yeah,
Probably because he's the guy with that Foley background action.
So it wasn't anybody. It wasn't anybody in the Discord that started.
Or maybe it was. I don't know.
It's coming from somewhere. I know it's coming, and I love it. It's like one of the common elements I find in our folks is like this, like the Foley drums, the like click clack, the like.
Yeah.
It feels good when Palkid. I asked Palkid how to do it because I collaborated with him, and I remember he said it's like almost frustrating how concise he is, but it's also incredibly helpful. He was like, you take a sound of someone rummaging and you cut it onto the grid. And I was like, okay, simple. Got some samples of people rummaging through stuff, cut it onto the grid. And I was like, this does not sound right. And so, but it's a skill, it's an art form. And now I've spent, months and months trying to figure out how to do this in my way and in the way that.
I would say getting not only the grid, also having a swing on it helps.
Yeah.
And super sharp EQs.
Okay.
Like,
what do you mean
don't give it this space in the EQ field, give it this space.
Ooh. So like to fill in gaps, or is it more on feeling? Is it like what serves the sample best?
Too much noise, especially in this Foley recording.
Yeah.
You take a Foley hi-hat and it got like a lot of noise in the low end, and you don't need that. You don't need that at all.
Yeah.
Same if you get like samples from rain or birds field recording. They have always like this rumble in the low end.
True.
That that is like messing with all the other elements in the track.
Absolutely.
And that's why I meant by super sharp EQ.
Yeah.
I also like this fade in and fade out. They are super easy to make in Logic. I recently switched, and you just like make a lot of fade ins, fade outs. Just take like a millisecond, put a delay on it, or a second of the sound, put a delay on it.
Like on your sampler.
And, just drag the samples in. and throw it around.
Yeah, so that's kind of, I think that's kind of what I intuited. That one, I did not think about the first one to like give it its own space, and I have not been doing that unless I had to, unless there was like a really salient rumble that I was trying to get rid of. But that made me want to ask you something.
Yeah.
It was about the swing. So like so that's one way you do your swing. You just like offset your samples. But is there any other way that you create like that swing effect?
You can finger drum it.
Okay. Yeah.
I tried that a lot. I have absolutely no talent. That's why I start throwing it in. And I would say it's, for me, if you don't really have the talent of finger drumming, it's just like pure dedication to it. Starting with a only 4-bar loop and start moving this snare a bit too fast, this snare a bit too slow. And like really going through every element, and sometimes it's just like 1 hour spending on a drum loop. This little hi-hat is a little bit too fast or a little bit too slow, and really vibe with it.
Yeah.
And I guess what helps the most is having less busy elements, but therefore more elements. What makes this super Foley experience by having, let's say, 8 elements, but not having like this fast hi-hat, but like this, and in between like a shake, like then you get this all glued together, put all on a bus with like a super small reverb, super short reverb, to give it the room that it feels like all the elements are inside one room.
Okay.
And then
so
compress.
Like convolution reverb or like an amp sim or something?
Just take any form of reverb and make like the decay on maybe half a second at max. Just like super short, and that glues it all together, just that it get the feeling of being inside of one room.
Cool. Oh man, that's really helpful. And what you were saying about the different, I just learned something about this last night, because I learn things like, I try to make them efficient as soon as I learn them. And I found out, I was realizing this about your music, about Palkid's music, Less Gravity I'm listening to a lot, that the sounds, they change almost every time. And actually what got me on it, do you know Pirate Software? He's like really famous for his shorts on YouTube. He's got long black hair and like kind of circular glasses. So a lot of the time he's just like memeing, which is hilarious. But like one thing he said about the way they make sound effects in video games is that they change the pitch and the volume and the timing just a little bit so that the listener doesn't become fatigued. And I was like, how can I do this? Yeah. So sword
That's
sound,
interesting. I just heard it for the first time. But I guess automations help a lot.
Well, the thing, so Reaper doesn't automate this, but what it will do is if you vary the samples beforehand and export them, you can load in a pool of samples into their sampler, and it'll pick them at random, or you can pick them to go through them in sequence as well. And so I think this is how I'm going to handle this potentially. I'm trying to find a way to do it faster, but yeah, I'm so glad you said that. It's really validating. It's validating to know that the dynamics of the sound, like the changing, even of something as simple as a hi-hat, because I haven't been doing that. My snare is always the same snare. It's always the same hi-hat. It's like the pattern just kind of goes.
It's really funny about the hi-hats, and that started with Logic, or with me using Logic. And the same shortcut, like the command button or the option button is doing the duplicate. If you just like press the command and you can drag it over. Okay. Or if you misclick, you time shift it. And and this happened so many times on drum loops when I drag them over.
So you just like leave it.
I left it.
Sounds great. Yeah.
And it sounded great. It's just a little bit shorter hi-hat or a little bit longer that gives it its complete new characteristic from the same source sounds. And yeah, I call this funny little accidents like Bob Ross do.
Yeah, your happy little trees, they came to
Yeah.
you this time. That's it. That stuff is beautiful.
Happens all by accident.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if I had like a recent one. I think that just VSTs having like weird noise keys is my most recent one. But
I don't even know what you meant by that. Like a noise fade. That is...
No. So like I get the most scuffed like VST instruments. I really don't. I haven't bought any. I don't know why. I've always had this ideal of, and I think it's because I teach folks on the margin, like young kids who are like from not very great backgrounds. That doesn't say anything anyway. So I've always had this kind of ideal that I would try to do as much as I can with as little as possible. So I end up going to like the free VST markets, like Labs. Spitfire Labs was one that you could just use any of their instruments for free. Some stuff happened, and I'm like not as into them anymore. Piano Book and Decent Sampler.
I know them. They're great.
Exactly, yeah, and it's really high quality stuff, but free. And so if I'm teaching young people, I can give them this resource for nothing. And so, but I find if you don't pay close attention to the libraries that you're loading into your Contact or your Decent Sampler or Labs, every once in a while, one of the MIDI keys, for whatever reason, like sometimes if it goes out of the register or something, like usually it's when it goes out of the register. Sometimes it's not. It'll have like just the incidentally, when whoever created that library was recording that sample, there's just like some jingle jangle or some noise or some clatter or just some nonsense, just not the note that you wanted to hear. But yeah, there was one really bad one. It was supposed to be a bell, but it sounded like they dropped the mallet or something, and it sounds like this clack on the floor, and there was this really long reverb delay tail on it. And I was like, you know what? I'm leaving this one.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Yeah. And it worked out. It was, I like how it sounds now. Yeah.
It's super interesting what you're doing this with the teaching for the new generation with super easy access, let's say. And I think that's also a part of the lo-fi genre as well, to just create without having this super well equipment. And we all saw it when Billie Eilish came up. She just recorded in the bedroom at home, and that's actually something that made her voice super iconic. Because if you live at your parents' house, you go super close to the mic and you're like you're like whispering the song text, and she used to like take 100 records and lay them on top of each other to get that super crazy Billie Eilish effect. And usually if you're classic trained, you go into the studio, you stand upwards, have the chest out so you get more air.
Feel it in your tailbone.
And you give it that pressure. And no, it was like completely the opposite of what you would learn classically. And it totally worked. The people love this effect.
This is absolutely it. And it's like beyond that now. I think before, like when I was growing up, like in the 90s, God, dating myself, I think maybe you could make the argument that the most popular music, the music that we were being exposed to, was for the most part being created in like really expensive studios. That was just the only music that you would get access to in like a small maritime town, by and large. But now it's like, it's not even rare for someone who they got BandLab on their phone. They downloaded it something on BeatStars, and they just said something evocative about their life, and now everyone's listening to it. So the barrier to entry is zero. Like you really, if you are to the genre and you have the talent, like we've already said many times during this podcast, if like it sounds how it should and you get it in the hands of the right people, that's all you need. That's all you have to do. And you can do that with BandLab and BeatStars and Labs and Decent Sampler and stuff like that. And Reaper is technically not free. I have a paid license, but I start many people on the infinite trial just to help, you know?
Wasn't Reaper for the long time one of the best free DAWs?
Well, I'm biased because I've only ever used it. I got a free copy of Ableton Lite with a guitar pedal simulator thing that I got like 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I used Ableton Lite for a few years, but then I got Reaper and I've been using it ever since. The blank canvas of it, I think it, for two reasons. So like the blank canvas of it back then, and I think a lot of people go through this, when you're choosing a DAW, people have these weird superstitions. They're like, Ableton has more bass or something, for some, which there is no reason to believe that.
Exactly.
And it's probably absolutely not true. But because Reaper was so plain, I was like, I like this. This means there's no bias. I can move on. But also the open source community and the automation scripts and just the ways that it kind of builds on top of itself for free. It blows my mind. Like if you make any other kind of media, like even if you cook, if I need to go out and get a tool for cooking, I'm going to spend like $60, $80 for something that's like fine. But then with music, you can get some of the best equipment available for free, which is insane. So
it
Reaper,
sounds like this Bethesda studio, you know, the Skyrim community.
The horse.
That is like putting out tons of mods for free. Yeah. And it's kind of this in my back head when you tell me about the community making all these files and sources. Same with this Vital synthesizer.
Oh, yeah?
That is a completely free synthesizer that looks super similar to Serum.
Legally distinct Serum.
And you have like multiple websites with thousands and thousands and thousands of presets that the community make and upload, because so many people have the access in the first point to get this free synthesizer that is super decent and sounding great. And they built their own community and it's growing together and like playing football, like play the ball from one to another.
Yeah.
Or soccer for the American side.
Oh yeah, excuse me. Yeah. Why do you think that is? So like I'm sure like as you've existed in eclectic communities where like gatekeeping is more common and equipment is harder to come by. Why do you think musicians are so generous with like their abilities or their resources?
I would say it super depends on the community you're in, I would say, because I remember when I tried to like hit up people for collabs when I doing techno.
Yeah.
I made like 10 times more collabs within the first year of making lo-fi than in 4 years of being a techno producer and DJ.
Brutal.
It's a whole different mindset in that community, and obviously it's combined with this with the fact that you can go on a stage and make really good money as a DJ when playing big festivals and getting like 5 to 6 figure per set. If you're one of the super top names, but if you're like in the mid range, you can get like booked for like $7,000 a night just to play for 2 hours. And I think with lo-fi, as example, we have this community that started because they have this love for this genre. There's not that much to get out of it if you're not Lo-Fi Girl or Chill Hop or one of the super big labels. There are a lot of people make it possible to have a living through it, but it's not this super fancy rock star life. And I guess that's kind of the mindset of the people, being super humble and friendly and having this humanity aspect of, we can help each other out and let's be this super friendly and nice community. And to be honest, I haven't met not one person in the whole lo-fi scene that I had to say like, oh man, oof. No, they're all super chill. It's amazing. I love it.
100%. So I think I got lucky then. I'm assuming like the emos were like, they're all sad boys, so they're not going to be mean to anyone. They're just like, we're just moping in our bedrooms.
Obviously.
Yeah. Nothing, I gotta be bent over a guitar crying, so I can't be mean to you. And then the lo-fi folks, yeah, it blew my mind. Like I've had, like everyone, I've had Joe jobs through my life. I've had colleagues, I've had peers and stuff, but it's never felt easier to collaborate. It seems the goal alignment, like how congruent our goals are as a community, is just, it makes things so easy. Like, here, take these stems, finish the song, we'll put it out, album art, little bit of admin, on to the next one. And it's like, I think because it's so like defined, or because we want the same things, it makes it, it's unbelievable. Like it really sets a super high bar. Now, if anybody like anywhere else is even a little bit rude to me, I'm like, I just want to go back to my safe lo-fi friends.
Okay, yeah, I totally get that. Get that. And yeah, that's really a point that brought me to completely quitting. Because I was not bad into the game. Like I had my weekly gigs, playing live shows, even organized my own parties and stuff.
Sick.
And
cool.
It took me like half a year in the lo-fi community to say I quit.
Wow.
This is the thing I want to do. It's super relaxed. And yeah, it changed my life so much to the better as well.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah. I guess I make rock music about once a year because of like my love for it, and it's just something totally different. But if I could do this, I could put out a weekly lo-fi release like forever. Like I really could forever. Yeah. It feels so good.
It is.
Yeah.
And also it kind of elaborates with your like achieving muscle. Like if you're putting a song out every week,
totally,
you will be so much better in a year just by doing it consistently.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if I had aspirations for any other genre, I would just have all of these skills to take into it. Like it's huge. It's so good for like what I'm doing. Yeah.
How is it about your rock project, one in a year? Are you playing it with a band or making completely solo stuff?
It depends. So it's a long like history, but there's something called the RPM challenge, where all over the world in the month of February, just like thousands of people do 10 songs in a month, and they call it a challenge, and there's a community around it.
Okay.
And so I made rock music this way for most of my like teen years. And then someone picked up my RPM album off of Bandcamp when I was in university. And he came to me. He was a drummer. He was like, I really like this stuff. Let's gig around town. And I wasn't from the city where I went to school. So he booked us gigs, and I got a following in like a city as a bar band. And, but then I like, there's some stuff with my family. And so I left, and I didn't really have a need or want to keep playing in a bar band. And then I was like free to do whatever I wanted as an individual again. And that's when I kind of like got into math rock and wanted to just wank on a guitar in the most ridiculous way possible. And so I did it myself. Yeah.
Does it come from this whole Tool movement?
Yeah.
I love Tool.
Right? Yeah, it's crazy.
It's the second music artist tattoo that I have on my body.
Hell yeah!
You know this super shiny bright eye from the Lateralis album? 100%, I got it like this big on the back.
Oh yeah, right. So yeah, and so that's what, and they're ridiculous. So you get it. It's like it's stupid music, and to a degree, it's like a meritocracy where it's like how good you are at music is how popular you are as an artist. And so I was by myself so that I could do that. So that I didn't have to depend on other people, which I don't know there was no reason for that. I just really wanted to do it by myself. And then eventually I played with another a drummer, and I did a couple of live gigs, and then COVID happened. And since then I've just been doing the album by myself. But I've lately had this idea of narrowing in on what the genre is, because my stuff just wasn't connecting with people, and I couldn't figure out why. And I think it was because what I was making wasn't a high enough quality just in terms of production. And it wasn't a genre. Like it wasn't distinct enough to really be noteworthy. And so instead of like having relationships with other artists where we're like arguing over like what is artistically correct or blah, 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 I really just wanted to figure out if I could do it, if I could make something that the broader community would be like, this is emo and we like this. So that's still the practice. And in February, I'll go back into the lab with all my new weekly release lo-fi skills and see if I can come out with like an emo album that people actually mess
you
with.
Definitely have to send me over the link if it's done. I would love to. Also, your math rock project, send me that over after the podcast. I would love to listen to it.
Sure, it's not very high. It's not very high fidelity. It's not lo-fi in a good way. Let's say that.
But actually, that could be like your new genre, making with the lo-fi skills that you have.
That's it.
Combining it with the guitar, making a whole new genre. And this is something interesting that I learned like some months ago on a 3-day seminar on marketing. It was more on positioning yourself, because this is something super interesting that you can apply to everything in your life.
Yeah.
Let's say, and one of the sentence that I heard there and went into my head and will never go out again is like, try being the first.
Yeah.
And try to give it a completely new name, like create a word that is not existent to the point now. Yeah. And I guess if you're making like lo-fi emo rock, that could be, that's words that everybody know but haven't heard in this context.
Exactly.
And then don't show it less to other musicians and show it more to like fans of both music styles. Show it to lo-fi fans, show it to rock fans, to emo fans. And that's where you get the best feedback from, because in the end of the day, the most musicians are in the studio making music and listening to such compositions with complete different ears. You will instantly, you know that if you're listening to a track, you instantly recognize like, oh, this is a super cool shaker loop, or this snare should be like 2 decibel lower, and all that stuff. You overthink so much when you're listening to music.
I know. Yeah, no, you're totally right. I think there is, and this might not be as relevant to the lo-fi audience, or maybe it is. There is like this point where the two genres almost touch. And it's this like, it's very nostalgic. It's like this nostalgic, slower, usually acoustic guitar driven, but very, very whiny and very yelly style. It's just much slower. Like you really could swap the drums out for the kind of like Foley drum lo-fi thing that we're doing. But then it's just the debate. It's like, do I do the whiny, screamy lyrics? Like, I think like, because lo-fi is instrumental generally, unless you have vocal loops. Well, there's that thing that Kuma did.
There are like a ton of super cool vocal lo-fi tracks. That's actually how I came into this genre. I don't know if I also mentioned it on the Cody podcast, but I can say it again. You know, like this Pofu. I don't know how to really say his name, but it's like it's a super nostalgic, well-known song. Deathbed. Just type it, Deathbed Lo-Fi.
Oh yeah, there it is. Cool. Coffee for your head.
Yeah.
Nice.
And this is with like super sad vocals on it. And that's why I think it could work so well.
Let's go.
There's a whole bunch of people that are enjoying this super sad lo-fi music. Like there are tons of playlists, sad lo-fi beats. There are playlists called sad lo-fi beats to cry to and stuff.
This is it. This is the bridge. Yeah.
And that's also the great part about lo-fi, that it's so widespread now. and you have happy lo-fi, upbeat lo-fi, you have jazzy lo-fi, you have so many new subgenres, and that's why I don't think that this genre is dying. It's more like in a rearranging, like fans can now choose, do I want to listen to this type of beat or this type of beat or this type of beat? And let's be honest, I don't know if it's in conclusion with Corona, but I cannot listen the whole day to like vocal tracks anymore. It at a certain point it's getting like too much, and I just want to listen to like some beats or instrumental music. I even like to listen to classic music or just piano playing.
Yeah, Claire de Lune became like an anti-anxiety.
Oh
medicine.
yeah, it
like,
does.
It's so potent. yeah. No, I've actually. It's ironic because we're on a podcast. Like I actually consume so many podcasts, but it's almost to a degree that it's like it's taking up too much space from music. And so when I switch off from listening to podcasts, often I'll put on like one of you guys. Really, like generally it's like just one of the lo-fi folks from our community, and it's helpful in a lot of ways. But it also just like makes life feel easier in like a similar way. Yeah. I'm so stoked about this track. Like I'm so excited you showed me this like rainbow bridge between those two genres. I'm about to go deep on this stuff. Really
there are more songs in this niche. I just don't have them right in my head.
That's all right. That's all right. I can go from
it's
here.
when I started. Also, super inspirational for me was Hippie Sabotage, if you know them.
All right. No.
They're like kind of some people call it like the Tumblr emo girl music.
Hell yeah, you're a Tumblr. Are you a Tumblr emo girl?
I kind of missed the hype on Tumblr. It was never popular in Switzerland. I know what it was.
Crazy. Yeah.
But for me, it's like Reddit. It's like Reddit in the end.
Pretty much. It's still a fine place to like get like seen. That's actually something that I've really been focusing on. It might be reasonable to talk about. It's like I've found places to like share music or to give what I'm making to a community that wants it, that I think a lot of people have it. And I think this is really powerful. Like this is something that not a lot of people know, but Steam community pages, like we make video game covers, and Steam has a community page for every video game. And if you can post YouTube videos directly, so it's actually YouTube, you generate YouTube traffic.
That's so smart.
And you get real estate on the Steam page for that track. There's also like transcription websites where if you upload the MIDI that you create as a transcription, you can like link your social media on the transcription. And if no transcription has existed, then like you're the first one, right? You're just saying being the only fish in the ocean is a really good way to do it. And so Steam is a really good one. When I was doing the roll-ups for my city, Snapchat allows you to just upload video now, which I think a lot of people don't know. You can just upload public TikTok style videos to Snapchat, which is a massively used app. Just like finding these like little places where you can get real estate where almost no one else is sharing this type of content, because people really feel like they're being like if you go where everybody else is, like if I went on Beatport and dropped like a trance song, I'd be lost in the everyone else. But if you find that place where those people are still looking for music but nobody is posting for them there. Another one is like review sites. So Rate Your Music and Album of the Year. These communities are massive and incredibly active. Yeah, and if you are popular on one of these sites, or your music is highly rated on one of these sites, then you get a lot of authority. You get like a lot of traffic.
That's so interesting. I didn't know about this sites, and also the idea with Steam is so brilliant.
Oh, it's
really brilliant.
It works. I don't know if the games that I like, Terraria is the game that I make music for mostly. So almost no one is making covers for that game. Yeah. So I don't know if that's like, and it's really popular on Steam. So there might be a confluence of like, I might be lucky, I guess, in a way. But I would still do it. Like it's so simple to do. Like you really just go on a Steam, you click on your profile, click videos, click upload. Or it's not even upload, you just link a YouTube video.
That's amazing. And
real estate.
It's like you have this game that you really enjoy playing as well, and doing covers for that. The same happened to me now with Rune Factory.
Cool.
I looked up YouTube. There were not a single lo-fi album.
Yeah.
That's so crazy, and the game is amazing.
Right? Yeah, the people do want it. Like everybody, have you ever heard of the tool vidIQ? It's a YouTube tool.
Nah.
So what it does is you type in a keyword and it shows you how many people search for that keyword every month versus how many videos to serve for that keyword are put up every month. And so something like Rune Factory Lo-Fi, I bet, has a very high, they call it a competition score.
Is this a free website?
You only get like unlimited keyword research with like a $5 per month plan or something like that. But it's like, before I was doing these Terraria covers and getting consistent success with them, this is how I would try to find what stuff to cover. And it doesn't always work. So like an example of how it didn't work and how you have to dig deeper into what you find is like trap beats. So if you just type in like free type beat on vidIQ, it'll be like, hell yeah, start a type beat channel. But the issue is that the way YouTube's algorithm for type beats works is that, and you probably already know this, but it's that the rich get richer. So people type in type beat and then they click on the same video every time. Yeah. So it looks like there's really low competition. People are only watching a few videos for this search term. But in reality, there are so many videos. There's very few spots at the top to take, I guess, is the idea. It isn't that there are a lot of spots.
Yeah, this was this hype with Internet Money, the group making type beats.
Yeah.
Nick Mira, the one who did all the Juice WRLD beats, is super inspirational to me. I love watching his video. He's he kind of explains stuff pretty easy in the most weirdest possible way. So something that a music teacher would explain super complicated, he explains it so easy but super weird, but you get it. Only how he explained how to write shorts. Okay, 5 minutes into this 20-minute video, and I kind of had the idea and tried experimenting around, and it worked.
Yeah.
Just like count up 7 and then go count up 3 or 4 from the first note, and you have a major or minor key. Then go from this note 7 more up, you have the major or minor 7th.
Interval, baby.
Super basic.
Yeah.
I haven't seen like a piano teacher on YouTube explaining it in this abstract, super easy way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I even skip, like when I teach young people, I don't even talk about music theory. Like BandLab, Reaper, like the free tools, they just have a key snap feature. You just turn on the key snap feature and then you can't make mistakes.
Yeah, boom. That's a game changer too.
It's like as beginners, they can turn on step MIDI recording and they could like literally smash a MIDI controller for like 5 minutes and they would have a coherent chord progression.
Okay, that's amazing. I use the Reason Rack VST because I use producing with Reason. They have this one tool called the Scales and Shorts doing exactly this. And now I use it just as a VST in front of my instrument in Logic, just to have the key.
Exactly.
But with covers, it's so much easier. You get MIDIs.
It is. It's like dead set. And so I think the reason I've started doing it and the reason those tools are so powerful, like just drag and drop MIDI, is that like when I'm teaching, I don't have to go into a bunch of context about like tension and release and like sevenths and ninths and 13ths and when it's proper to use dissonance and so on and so forth. I'm just like, turn on key snap, smash the keyboard. Like, like this is ostensibly correct. And most people would agree with you that this sounds like music.
Yeah.
And it's that easy. Like and so I don't need to like talk about any of that other stuff. And generally it's just a jumping off point where they figure out how to do that. And then they sort of start changing things to their own taste as they go. It's so simple. It's that people like Nick Mira can have an entire career out of that kind of thing. It's great. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree on that. Great. I just saw that the time flew by like rapidly.
It was awesome.
I would definitely say, if you're up to it, let's do a second episode like in a few weeks.
Sure.
Just
Yeah.
like to continue hop on this topic or
Sure.
something completely new. We can go more into the video game scene. I don't
Sure.
want to have
Yeah.
it like
Yeah.
super focused on only music stuff. What is kind of hard when talking to musicians because it's like this topic that we all love talking about, right?
I know. And we're doing it all the time. And none of my family wants to hear about it. They're like, what?
Oh, yeah.
Music on Steam? Shut up. Like, leave me alone. Go play your games or whatever.
You rather go playing your games? That's less of a time waste. No.
Yeah. Why did you quit playing World of Warcraft? That was so much more productive.
It's so funny. We have like super similar stories from the background. I had also my World of Warcraft phase, the whole emo music phase.
Yeah, World of Warcraft got us addicted to Number Go Up, and we'll never be able to live without Number Go Up ever again.
Or the same with Tool. Not a lot of people know Tool.
Oh, yeah, like the time signatures and stuff.
I love it. And it's so funny, the last guest, the episode is not out yet. We both started music because of a longboard downhill accident. He broke his arm while longboarding, like downhill longboarding, and I broke my foot. And we both kind of switched from that to went into music.
There could be a study about this. This is a physics like law that we don't understand yet. Yeah.
And a lot of rock and metal fans also in the lo-fi scene. That's a ridiculously high amount of numbers. Yeah. Maybe it's just like we kind of connect with people like us easier. I don't know. But the most that I met in the last 2 years had like their time, or still have their time, with like good rock music, metal music, screamo music.
Well, yeah, it's like we said, right? Like we grew up, like the thing that blows my mind, like in the year 2000, Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory was Billboard's #1 album.
Yeah.
Like that's what we believed, that being, like the guys in Linkin Park, like being Chester was what being a musician is.
Yeah.
And so I think it just makes sense that like a lot of musicians have this background, because Hybrid Theory was the album that your mom was putting in your Christmas stocking,
It was amazing.
Oh, it was great. Yeah, it was an awesome record. Yeah.
Yeah, same with Red Hot or Billy Talent was my first ever CD.
Yeah, Billy Talent, right? I just saw those guys live.
What was your first CD? Can you remember?
Yeah. So there's this band from Canada who isn't that popular in other countries. They're called Our Lady Peace. They're an alternative rock band. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, they're not. And so I asked my sister, like my dad really loves soul and R&B music, and that informs a lot of what I do. But it wasn't cool because dad liked it. So I asked my sister, I was like, will you show me music? I was like 8 or something or younger. And she was like, yeah. And she like put on the country music station. And I was like, no, not like that. And then she put on the rock music station, and I was like, hell yeah. And Our Lady Peace was the weirdest. They have like Chucky, the horror doll.
Yeah, no, which
he's
one?
Like, he's the album art. And the guitarist that played in the band at the time made these really wacky like sounds, and they barely played guitar. It was just making pedal board sounds.
Okay.
But it was on TV because they were Canadian. It was too weird to be mainstream. Okay. But because they were Canadian, they got airtime. And so I bought that CD. Yeah, it came out in 1997. So I would have been 6 actually when I got it. And I asked my sister, and I was like, and then I became obsessed with this like CD with this weird doll on it. Yeah, so that was for Our Lady Peace, and I really wouldn't listen to them at all now. Like I've burned it out. I can't listen to it anymore.
But it's nice it's a nice question actually for the podcast.
That's a really good question.
I should asking this more people. Yeah, also, to make like a round cut. This is something I wrote down before recording the first episode that I want to ask every single guest.
Let's do it.
It could be anything, like one simple life advice that you would like to share with everyone who's listening. It can be about any kind of topic, don't have to be music related.
I recently got into I've been studying the philosophy Stoicism for
Ooh, I love this.
deeply, right? For the last like 5 years. I'm trying, and they have so many precepts, right? But that, if there was life advice, there's something called cognitive behavioral therapy, and it is the most popular and only scientifically validated form of mental health therapy. And it can be self-administered using the book Mind Over Mood.
Okay.
And if you understand how to use it,
down.
yeah, if you understand how to do it and you're diligent with your study, you can really like take control of your perception of the world. But I'll use something like faster and pithier. So Stoicism is what inspired cognitive behavioral therapy, which is the most popular form of mental health treatment in the world. And they say, and you would know this because you like Stoicism, so they say all of these incredibly pithy things. Yeah, right. There it is. There
It's
it
on
is.
my table. Just like to go through a random page and read like a little bit.
Crazy. Is that the meditations?
If that's the English translation.
Oh, yeah.
It's like this short stories from Mark Aurel. Yeah. In German, it's Selbstbetrachtungen, like watching yourself or something.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, that's what he was doing. He was just writing mean things about himself in a journal or whatever. And so I'm trying to think of the one that I guess kind of goes with the theme of what we were talking about today is to treat your earthenware like silverware and to treat your silverware like earthenware.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that one.
Yeah. So what is simple, to treat it as if it's important, and what is important, treat it as if it's simple or not valuable. And that's been really helpful to me for most of my life, or for the 5 years that I've been studying Stoicism, I guess. But anyway, more or less, it's they teach cognitive behavioral therapy, but in the way that like an old Roman guy would do it. And I like that. I just really resonate with that version of it, like old Romans kind of saying mean things to me. But it really is just, it's when you get around to it, it's the same therapy that most therapists, or not, I don't know, that's oversimplifying it. The most scientifically validated type of therapy. So yeah, either read Stoicism or read Mind Over Mood and practice it. Don't just read it, do it, live it. Yeah.
It's such an interesting topic. I catched up on it like a year ago, but cool. I have it like in my back head and didn't just not find the time to like get into it. And in the last 3-4 months, I really start getting into it. What I can say, what I really recognized is when driving the car, I'm not that fast angry anymore. Like, move, drive fast, all this stuff is it's still here, but I would say the stress level went from on the top to way lower.
Amazing. It's incredible. If you can do what's recommended in those books, it really will change your life. To believe that you have ultimate control over only one thing, but that one thing is your happiness is just like, don't control anything except your happiness.
And this controls everything else in the opposite way. If you're happy, nothing else can really stress you.
Exactly. You're invincible.
That's the perfect ending for this podcast.
Sweet. Glad. That's sick that you have the meditations on your desk. That's crazy. So many similarities.
Yeah, I have just like my journal where I just wrote in this book that you said with Mind Over Mood.
Yeah, that's the one.
And this is something that I just recently started, like really writing a journal with, on the one side with tasks, with like small wins. Just like, this was pretty dope today, and learnings. That's the aspect that I read in the most.
So the Stoics actually had a journal practice that they stole from Pythagoras, and it's brutal. Like they would sit down at the end of every day and they'd be like, "How was I a bad person today?"
Oh yeah.
Like, this is how I was a bad person today. This is how I'm going to be better tomorrow. And it's just like, that's great. They did that every day. They'd be like, how can I be a better person? And that's all they asked themselves. They're like, what did I do wrong? And then they really sat there and looked at themselves and they were like,
I try to kind of translate it in positive words, like
I don't think most people could do. I definitely wouldn't recommend people do that unless there's a professional in the room. Like, don't just write your faults down every day or whatever. But
or
they were hard work.
My learnings are often I take something I done wrong, and I write down how I would act better next time, and that's like the translation to a positive message in the learning.
Hell yeah. That's that's it. Yeah. Sick. I'm glad you're doing it. I'll keep it up too.
Yeah. And I'm super hyped to talk with you about more Stoicism.
Yeah. We could do
topics.
A whole podcast about that. Holy music.
Oh yeah. Let's do that.
Together.
Let's do that. Sure, that could be like a special episode for next time. Yeah, and then I would say, let's wink in the camera and say goodbye to the listeners.
See y'all later. Take care. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.